Look, I killed this eye makeup look today. It's the eye color for me. Hey, I feel like I want to shoot this video just like this so you guys can just stare at my eyeshadow skills for the next 30 minutes. Bookish channel where we talk all things books all the time. My name is Nobukanya. Welcome if this is your first time here. Welcome back if you're an OG and you've been with me for a while. Today I'm going to be showing you guys the books that I read in January, aka my January wrap up. January was a really good reading month for me. It's the first time in ages where I've kind of hit the ground running. I've read / listened to, I think 20 books this month, which was just like, yes! Usually I struggle so much in January to get moving. I think last year, I read 8 books in January, which I think is still decent, but like I struggled to get moving. But again, 2021, we're starting off the year good. Also guys, audiobooks, I'm gonna say this probably every video, but audiobooks, game changer. They really have elevated my reading. I have finished so many more books than I usually do. A lot more like thick books, a lot more in-depth books, because I've been switching between listening to them on audio and reading the physical book if I have it. I've been using Scribd predominantly for that. By the way, check below, I have a referral link if you want to get Scribd. You get 60 days free if you use share my referral link or whatever, my share code. So check it down below, it's in my description box. But yeah, so I've been listening on Scribd, and then also Libro. Oh, Libro had such great releases this month. I was like obsessed with so many of the books. You guys know I've spoken about Black Buck probably from now until like Kingdom Come. Like I've spoken about this book so much at this point, you guys must be tired, but still, Black Buck is amazing. It is the book that everybody needs to get. But anyway, we'll get to that in a second. So yeah, I'm gonna give you guys a rundown of the books that I read this month. A couple of surprises, a couple of books I randomly picked up at the bookstore and I just started reading. So many really great ones this month. I usually don't have this many 5-star, like 4.5-star reads. I have a solid amount. I think out of the 20 books, maybe only 5 of them were like 3.5, 3-star. Everything else was really good, which I'm really happy about, because usually I get a lot of dads, you guys know. I always be picking books that I'm just like, what is going on here? And then I look like such a negative Nancy because like I can't not tell the truth. But anyway, yeah. By the way, quick admin first, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram on @prettyxbookish, like, comment, DM me on Instagram if you want to chat. I have a couple of videos on my IGTV as well, so you can check those out as well if you're interested. But anyway, let's get started with my January wrap up. Okay, so January, sorry, I'm just rolling up my sleeves because like we get into work. So January is a pretty good reading month for me. I read a wide variety of books and I had a lot of like really good ones. So the first book I read this month was actually an audiobook, and it was The Office of Historical Corrections by Danielle Evans. Books to grab, love this book. I listened to it on audio. Obviously, I had the Libro FM one, and it was really good. I think I gave it like, I haven't done a proper review because I haven't figured out how to take, by the way, if you know me, you know I never take photos of audiobooks or even of ebooks because I don't think I have the range. I need to figure out how to do it to make it look nice, but anyway, that's not what you asked. So The Office of Historical Collections, it's like I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really good. There's one story in particular about like this white girl who kind of summer romance and then ends up dating some guy who's a Confederate, and then takes a photo of herself in like a Confederate flag bikini and then posts it on social media. And then when she gets back to school, like it's a huge hoopla because she's got black people in her dorm room and they're kind of like, oh my god. And then she basically is on some like whatever, I wasn't even trying to do anything, like, and it's just these kind of stories. I don't know how to explain it, but like they're so relevant, they're so topical, they're witty, they're smart, but they also make you think, but they also just are entertaining. So The Office of Historical Corrections, I really enjoyed that collection, especially also the actual Office of Historical Corrections, the actual story inside the short story collection, or the essays or short, it's short stories. It's actually short stories. So that one was the first one I listened to and it was super good. So definitely recommend that. The next thing I listened to, I don't think I need to talk about it that much because I've raved about it so much, was Black Buck by Matteo Askirapour. 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, 15 out of 15. Everything about this book was fantastic. I thought it was topical, it was witty, it was like so smart, it was so like it was so on topic for like the kind of world we live in right now. Mr. Escurapo is smart, he's witty, the way he kind of tells that story and the humor in it and the dark kind of humor in it and the kind of satire involved, fantastic. I personally feel like the audiobook was absolutely phenomenal. The audiobook narrator, I've said this before, was so good. He's one of the best audiobook narrators I've ever listened to, and definitely if you like audiobooks, or if you're trying to, that's definitely an audiobook to get. I personally am going to order the physical copy because I love that book so much. I want to be able to see it on my shelf, but definitely the audiobook, it was like top class stuff, fantastic, loved it. So that book was really good. The other book that I listened to also on audiobook, like I think like the first 3 books I finished this month were all on audio. The next book that I also listened to, I listened to on Libro FM as well. By the way, Black Buck I also listened to on Libro, was How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House by Cherry Jones. Again, fantastic. I thought this book was, I got an advanced listeners copy, so I think this book comes out on the 5th of February or something. Audiobook narrator was so good. The story itself was so heartbreaking, but also I personally loved it. The ending was so bittersweet. It was hopeful, but also really like devastating for me. I like the way that it kind of explores intergenerational trauma and the way that like abuse and kind of sexual violence in a family kind of follow someone, and how people repeat patterns that like their mothers and their grandmothers have all lived through. And it's such an interesting way to the book does such a good job of kind of exploring and kind of shining a light on the kind of difficulty of being a woman and being in an abusive relationship, and like the kind of very the structural and societal things that kind of try and keep you in place. I really liked Lala as a main character, and I thought she really was well constructed as a main character, and the fact that she wasn't perfect and that she did some really crappy things and stuff, I really liked that book. I thought it was really good. And it's also #ReadCaribbean, so Cindy also really liked this book, so definitely check this out if you're looking for a Caribbean read to read this year or this month or whatever. How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House was very good. Okay. So next I'm going to start on my physical books. The first book I'm going to talk to you guys about that I read this month was The Fell of Dark by Caleb Rurig. I did a review of this book on Instagram and everybody was just like lol, because I basically, like, this is Queer Vampire Diaries. You know how all 8 seasons or how many seasons of Vampire Diaries were synthesized together and made queer and just like thrown in a book? That was this. I think I gave this book 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. Like obviously, like because it was I found so many parallels. It wasn't like something fresh and new and exciting, except for the fact that it was queer, and I really liked that. So basically this book tells the story of, I'm gonna tell you what his name is. His name is August. So Augie basically is a normal teenager. So in this town, vampires are just like there. Everybody knows that they're there, whatever. So August then basically has this entity that's living inside him. He didn't know, this reincarnation of like an entity that's like trying to end the world, that's slowly growing inside him. There are different vampires. There's one human vampire hunters, there's a vampire order cult or whatever. There's a bunch of like random vampire cults. All of them are trying to get Augie on their side to pledge loyalty to them, so that when this entity finally emerges, it's like this all-powerful entity will belong to him. There's also a love triangle where Augie is like in the middle of like these 2 ex-boyfriends who are vampires who dated each other, and now they kind of have a thing with Augie. It's a whole thing. I thought this book was really good. If you like vampire books and you like Vampire Diaries, Vampire Academy and that kind of thing, and you're looking for a queer alternative, I thought this was a pretty good one. I also recreated this on Instagram. I posted this photo, which I thought was really cool, so I just wanted to come show you guys on BookTube as well. But this book, definitely glad I read it, loved it, was really good. It's what I needed when I read it, so yes. The next book that I also read this month was Just Like You by Nick Hornby. I gave this book, I think, 3 stars or 3.5 stars as well. I thought it was pretty good. So basically this book tells the story of, guys, I forget people's names so easily. Lucy and Joseph. Lucy is like a 40-something-year-old white woman, and then Joseph is like a 23-year-old black man in the UK. And basically he works at her local butchery, and then he ends up babysitting for her kids. Then they end up like kind of low-key loving falling in some kind of sexual relationship. They start sleeping together. and she's freaking out a lot about this fact that like he's so young, and she's just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna sleep with him for now, like it's not gonna be a real relationship or whatever because he's so young. And like he's trying to navigate his life, he's trying to be a DJ, it's a whole thing. And like how they navigate this kind of relationship, I did say though on Instagram that like this sounds like something you'd be like, oh, so romantic. This book has absolutely no romance in the classical sense that we understand it. There's no flowery words, there's no like declarations, there's no like hallmark moments. It's very, very mundane, and a part of me is like, yes, I like that, but also I feel like what's his name, Nick Hornby could have done a much better job of kind of delving into the kind of intimacies of and the kind of vulnerabilities and the intricacies as well of the kind of interpersonal relationship, which he didn't do that much. But I more or less liked the book because I found it like really real. I found that it didn't have a lot of the frills and a lot of the other stuff. I will say though that his representation, I was a little bit nervous about this book because a white man whose main characters are a black man and a white woman, I'm just like, oh, like white men just generally, and this is not shade, they just generally, I'm always nervous when they try and delve into other races and other ethnic groups and other gender, especially straight white men, other gender identities when they're trying to represent main characters, because a lot of the time there's a lot of tomfoolery happening. So this book, I will say, Nick Hornby made Joseph black, but tried to make him as un-black as he could possibly make it, in the sense that like he didn't touch on him being black to any real degree. So I just feel like he made him black just to tick a box. But at the same time, like, I'm glad he didn't try and dive into him being black and then completely do a botch job. So he didn't do that thing of like trying to use all the slang, and like there were a couple of moments where like, but he didn't do that thing of trying to be super hip, super urban or whatever. It's just that Joseph just happened to be black. And he just happened to be like a millennial young guy who doesn't know what he's doing with his life. But like Nick Hornby at least didn't try to like make himself seem like he knows anything about black culture or blackness. So I appreciated that, in as much as I was just like, okay, yeah, fine. So yeah, this is another book that I read this month. The other one, which was actually, I think, the first physical book that I finished, was Star Daughter by Shweta Thakrar. Loved it. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars on Instagram. This book was so good. First of all, I'm going to do this again because this cover is like, oh my god, this is like one of the prettiest covers. I think it's one of the prettiest covers that I own. So even if I'd hated this book, which luckily I didn't, but even if I did, you guys are going to see this on my bookshelf because there's no way I'm getting rid of this book ever because it's so beautiful. Okay, sorry, I just realized I was speaking like at super speed. But anyway, Star Daughter by Shweta Thakrar basically tells the story of, guys, I forget everybody's name, Sheetal. So Sheetal is basically just saying her mother is a star, like an actual star in the sky. So in this universe, like stars are actual like entities that like appear like humans. So her mom came down to Earth, fell in love with her dad, had her, and then actually had to go back to stardom, the galaxy. And then, oh, it's actually got a name. I'm just like calling it something that it's not. What's it called again? No, I can't tell you now. I can't find the name, but it's actually got a name. Yeah, the star place has a name. But anyway, so then Sheetal is like on Earth and trying to navigate being half star, half human. And then eventually she kind of gets called up to the stars because there's some sort of competition that she has to compete in for her bloodline. So in the star galaxy, I think there are like 7 houses, and all the different houses of the stars, the kind of king, let's just call it that, like the king of the stars is from one of these houses. So only one house like reigns supreme for like 200 years, and then they kind of redo this competition every couple of centuries. So now she has to go and compete for her family, and it's about her, like, the thing about this book is it's like a lot about it navigating the relationship between Sheetal and her mother, because her mother kind of just left her and she's like kind of dealing with that. Then there's also a boy, there's romance, there's friendship, there's like trying to find yourself and like identity, and like when you are straddling 2 worlds. But one of the things I love the most about this book is the way that Shweta Thakrar really embeds this book in kind of Hindu cultures and Hindu mythologies, and makes it like so very like elements of Indian cultures, and makes it so very rich in that kind of heritage, that like I had to Google so many things here to know what was going on. And I love that she didn't just feel the need to over explain things. Things were just there, foods and references to different gods and different cosmology systems and stuff like that. You had to Google certain words, you had to figure out what was going on. And I love that so much because it makes me feel like the writer is writing for herself and for people like her, and that the rest of us it's a privilege to be able to read this book, and so we need to do our Googles and figure out what's going on and not expect everything to be handed us on a silver platter. So I love that about this book. It's one of the things that I love the most, other than the cover and the general story, and I loved it so much. Although I will say this is one of the only books where I could have done without the romance. And I said that on Instagram as well. And yeah, it was just a random thing, but like I loved Dev, I loved them, but like also it could have not been there, and I think the book would have been fine as well, which is a weird take for me because I'm always just like, if things don't have romance, what are we doing? Okay, so the next book that I read was the one I read on a whim, which was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Lord have mercy. I listened to this on audiobook, and then I went and I bought the physical book. I think I also went and picked up Dragon Republic. This book is so good, but also, guys, this book is so graphic. It's so like, it's a lot, like in terms of like there's a lot of death and murder. Like there's like bodies in the street and disembowelments and like mass murders. Like this is not your typical fantasy book that is like super, like, you know how like when they do wars and like battles in like fantasy books, even adult fantasy, they describe it, but they don't really go into the like whole people are being disemboweled in the street. It's more or less like everybody's fighting. They'll be like, you killed someone, you stabbed him. But like this book, like R.F. Kuang will be like, you like ripped him from here to here and he's like intestines are falling out. Like it's a very descriptive book. So yeah, I really like this book. It's basically a story about Rin. And Rin has to go and do, does this kind of national test. So I think this book is set in a place called Nikan. So it's basically roughly based on like kind of China and Chinese history. So Nikan has this test to kind of get the elite best of the best students all over the world. It's called the Keju. So she takes the Keju, aces the Keju, and she's like super poor, comes from a really poor background, so nobody expects her to ace it. So she gets into the top school, and obviously she gets there, she's getting hazed, all of this stuff. And then she has to claw her way to the top of the school and to graduate as like a top of the class, right? And then after that, she kind of starts training with an apprentice who's teaching her how to access these kind of elemental powers that her race of people, I think she's one of the last of her race of people, have access to. And then also, guys, this book, by the way, there's a lot happening. It goes on from like her writing the Keju like through like 2 wars or something. Like, oh, there's so much happening that like you think, I don't know how she's going to top this with book 2, but at the same time, it didn't feel like too much was happening. So as I was describing this, I'm thinking like, you guys are probably thinking, how is all of this happening? So yeah, it goes on and on and on. There's a couple of guys. There's no romance in this book as well, which I was kind of like, but at the same time, I was just like, to be honest with you, I feel like Rin had her priorities in order. Like she was dealing with a lot of stuff. So if there'd been a romance in here, I feel like I would have complained and said, okay, so like sis, you can't be trying to pass and graduate and also trying to not die in a war and be concerned with men. Like, pick a struggle. So this is one of those books where I was just like, I'm glad there was no romance. I will say though, for those of you who've read it, this ending, Rin is a cold bitch. Like, I low-key want to stand, but I'm also low-key very scared of her. Like, she's a cold bitch. Like, she is like ready to kill. Like, that decision she made, I was just like, sis, and I can't tell you guys what it is if you haven't read it, because like it's a lot, and I'm just like, sis, yeah, no, she cold. Like, that's what I'm gonna say. Sis is cold. So the next book that I read, oh guys, The House of the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Oh guys, this book is so good. It's so good. It's literally everything everybody says it is. It's just, it's so, guys, Chauncey, if you read this book, Chauncey, like, I would literally set the world on fire to protect Chauncey. Like, he is everything to me. Like, he just wants to be a bellhop. Like, guys, just let him be a bellhop. Please, I beg you guys, just let him be a bellhop. Like, oh, guys, this book is so... Everybody says it's like a hug, and I feel like I agree with that, but also I will say it's a hug that's gonna make you cry. Like, I cried, and I'm a cold, but this book had me feeling some type of way. Like, I was like... These guys, these kids, like, this book is about found family, and it's about this group of orphan kids who have supernatural abilities, and there's this kind of overlord institution that kind of tracks people with magical abilities, and it kind of wants to assess whether this orphanage should stay open. And like, guys, these kids, I just, and then also the love story between Linus and Arthur was just so, I like that it also was a backdrop to the kids. Like, the kind of conversation around found family and belonging and being who you are was the main thing, and then the love story was just an undercurrent underneath, and then it just kind of culminated in a nice warm little hug at the end. But then it wasn't like the dominating force in this book. So I just, House in the Cerulean Sea was so good. I definitely would highly recommend this if you're looking for something that's just going to make you happy but also make you cry a little bit, but also just generally make you really happy. Definitely love this book. Okay, so the next two books that I read were Volume 2 and Volume 3 of the Fence graphic novel. Loved them. So I think I've spoken about this graphic novel before. So basically it's kind of like a queer graphic novel, kind of, but not really, but yes. And it's basically set in this kind of fencing academy where everybody's trying to make it to the top and be a part of this like elite fencing team. And I just love it because it's just one of those things that is teaching me something about fencing that I never thought I wanted to know. But like, you know, like the Queen's Gambit is just like, now I want to know everything about chess. Love this series as well. So if you're looking for a queer graphic novel, that's definitely another one to check out. So really enjoying Fence so far. Loving it, loving it, loving it. Okay, so the next book is a book I actually finished like 2-3 days ago, and it was A Burning by Megha Majumdar. Bookstagram loved this book. I would give it about 3 stars. I found it to be so basically it tells the story of this kind of terrorist attack in this place in India, this community where a train kind of gets set on fire and a bunch of people die. And then there's 3 characters. It's a multi-narrative novel where 3 people whose lives are intertwined with this kind of attack. There's Lovely, who's a Hijra. There is, what's her name? Jivan, who is a poor Muslim girl. And then there's P.T. Sir, who is basically a local physical education teacher. I just thought that this book was not as wow as everybody said it was. I don't know if the fact that I didn't like it that much comes from the fact that people hyped it so much last year that I was just like, I just found the narrative to be very like, it was disjointed, but also it was just, things just were falling flat. I didn't get like an overwhelming sense of like, yes, yes, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just thought like, I don't know how to explain it. I just didn't particularly like this book. I just thought it was just more. There were a couple of moments where that were like really well written, a couple of things, but in general, I think part of it is that like I'm a little bit more familiar with the kind of experience of poor people in India and the inequalities in that space, and also because I've read other books by Indian writers, and also I think I did a module on this in history in school. So this book didn't elucidate anything that I didn't already know. And then also the narrative was not as well constructed as I thought it could have been. So I don't know. I just didn't particularly like this book. But anyway, that's another book that I finished this month. Don't really have much to say about it. The next book I also read was Mirage by Sumaya Dawood. Finally read it. Guys, first of all, this cover I have to show you because it's probably the most beautiful cover I've ever seen in my young little life. Such a good book. I gave this, I think, 3.5 stars. I really, really, really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a well-constructed world. Okay, so this book tells the story. I forget everyone's name. This is so wild. So Amani is a girl. So there's this kind of, it's set in a galaxy, right? So this kind of planet got kind of conquered by the Vath, and then the Vath queen, her name is, or not queen, she's kind of the heir to the kingdom. So her dad is king now, so she's going to inherit this whole empire. Her name is Maram. So people are trying to kill Maram or whatever, so her life is in danger. So her dad wants to find her body double. That's where Amani comes in. So the Vath soldiers kind of kidnap her from her home village for her to come and stand in as Maram's basically body double, for her to attend all these events. In the events that someone tries to shoot her, then they end up killing Amani and not Maram. So Maram is like a bad person. Like she is like she's quintessentially Vath. She's cold, she's mean, she's like really, really cruel. And so, but then her and Amani kind of forge a relationship and they kind of become sort of like sisters. And it's like, because Maram is half Vath, but half it's called, what's the name of this, she's Vatek, she's half Vatek and half guys, I have to tell you this because it's like, yeah. half Batek, half Andalen, which is the place where this book is, which is the galaxy that was taken over. And then also there's a love story, and it's really good. The thing I like about this book more than anything is that like the world construction is really like, it's a lot. It's like really expansive. Like there's a lot of planets, there's a lot of galaxies, and also I was expecting Wrath in the Dawn by Renee Adi, and it was giving me more Star Daughter vibes. This book, like it was very science fiction-y, but also it's described as a fantasy science fiction, and then Samaya Dawood is like Moroccan, so it's like really embeds a lot of like Moroccan culture and like a lot of the elements of like Moroccan heritage into the book, into these kind of different kingdoms and whatever. So I thought it was a really good book. It's a great like a fantasy if you're looking for something like fun to dive into, but not something super serious, not something where your life is going to be shattered, but like not like Emma in the Ashes where your life is going to end, but like something like just really fun and interesting and like really rich. I really enjoyed this book. I thought this was a really good one as well. Okay, so the next book that I read this month was The First Woman by Jennifer Nansubuga Makumbi. It was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad I loved this book because I was so scared to have to tell you guys I didn't like it if I didn't like it, because African Books to Grab was going to drag me for filth. But I loved this book so much. It was so well, it was so good. So good. Like, so this book, okay, so the plot is basically that Grabo grew up in a village with her grandparents because her dad basically moved to the city. He got remarried. Her mom abandoned her when she was a baby, so she doesn't know her mom. So basically raised by her grandparents who love her so much, and like she's just like treasured by her grandparents. But the plot of this book is not really the shining star of the book. This book is basically a well-constructed exploration of kind of feminism in the African context. It's about speaking about women, interpersonal relationships between women, how intergenerationally, how women relate to one another. I'm explaining this like really weirdly, but like I also feel like Jennifer Nansubuga's books like are beyond explanation in the sense of like, because even the synopsis of this book doesn't encompass the totality of it. It's almost like I don't know how to explain the plot of this book without giving things away, because there's a lot of stuff that you discover along the way that are like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. There's a bit of love, there's a bit of romance, but the most important part of this book is that the way she explores interpersonal relationships between women in the same family, between friendships, female friendships, mother-daughter relationships, grandparents and their daughters, and what it means to be a woman in this space, and what it means to be a feminist, and how feminism exists in these spaces, even if it's not called feminism in the Western sense, and how relating with men, and it's just the most important thing I love about this book is the friendships and the exploration. So basically it's multi-character, multi-generational as well. So it explores Grabo, right? And then there are certain sections that go back in time to her grandmother's time, age group, time of living. Her grandmother's still alive. What do I mean time of living? But her grandmother's, when her grandmother was younger, and how they grew up. And it's just, I absolutely love this book. Jennifer Nansubuga is a great writer. I will say though that I felt like the transitions between part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 were not as smooth as I would have liked, but all in all, 5-star book. I definitely highly recommend. If you're looking for an African lit book, if you're looking for just a well written book. I said when I was talking about this on Instagram, this book is what I wished Girl with a Loud Voice was. This book is Girl with a Loud Voice executed superbly. Like, I felt like this is just, if you didn't really like Girl with a Loud Voice and you felt like there was something missing, this is a book that definitely for you, I feel like will fill in those gaps. So finally read this. Also thank you to One World Publishers for sending it to me, but absolutely love this. You can see it's like even hella tabulated. Love this book. I'm so glad I loved it, because I didn't like Chintu, which was Jennifer Nansubuga's first book. And then the second book, Manchester Happens, which is a collection of short stories. I really enjoyed that one. I think I read it in 2019. Then the next book that I also read was The Deep by River Solomon. Listened to this on audiobook. Gave this 4 stars. It was also very good. It's basically a book that reimagines sea dwellers, or like mermaids or mermen people, as being descendants of slaves who were thrown overboard. So, you know, during slavery, the Atlantic slave trade, the passage from Africa to the Americas, a lot of slaves, when they got sick or when they were pregnant or when there was just like too many people on board, were thrown overboard just like recklessly. So this reimagines that. There's this they called the Wajinru. The Wajinru are this kind of race of people who live under the water, basically like, think mermaids, but they are descendants from slaves. So it's beautiful. It's such an interesting, that she touches a lot on the conversation around home, around community, around descendants, and most specifically about history and the weight of history and memory and the need to remember things even when they're difficult, and the kind of weight and the pain of carrying that memory, but also the necessity of being able to track yourself in history and locate yourself within a broader kind of social context. So The Deep, it's also really short. It's like 180 pages. So if you're looking for something really short, I also really like the audiobook of this. So The Deep by River Solomon was also really, really good this month. The other book that I read was The Trouble with Hating You by Sajni Patel. To be honest with you, I didn't love this book so much because I just feel like I'm just over romance novels in general, especially this kind of structure. I will say though that I did like that it's set in an Indian family. It's diverse. It does kind of delve a little bit more into kind of the cultural nuances of dating and marriage and kind of engaging in a community and within a particular religious framework. So that was interesting, but I did not particularly like this book. I just thought it was enemies to lovers, but their enmity just lasted too long. And also the main character, Leah Thakrar, I couldn't really like connect with her. Also Jay Shah, the whole he's a really good guy, he's one of the good ones thing. I don't know. I just didn't love this book so much, but it was okay, guys. If you want to read a romance novel, I wouldn't necessarily like say don't read it, but personally it wasn't my kind of thing. Then the last book is one that I actually loved, which was The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed. Oh guys, this book is so good. I could relate to this book so much. So this book is about Ashley, who grew up, it's set in the 1992, around the time when Rodney King's murderers were acquitted, the police who killed him were acquitted, and the riots that happened in LA. So Ashley lives like 10 miles away from all that happens, in a super bougie white neighborhood. She's a black girl obviously and has only white friends, and kind of her navigating the space of her all her life she's been around white people and she's had white friends, and like now she's realizing like actually sis, you're blackity black 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 and the world will treat you as blackity black black black. So I really liked her. I liked her, the main character. Christina Hammonds Reed really located this book really well in the broader context while still exploring kind of high school drama and like relationships and being at the age where you're trying to discover yourself, and how that might be difficult if you're a black young girl trying to navigate this world that is like, yeah, that is a challenge for black people in general, but like you trying to figure out how much of yourself is really you and how much is it your environment. So I really like this book. I thought this was definitely like 4.5, 5-star recommendation. If you're looking for something YA to read, this was really good. I couldn't say anything bad about this book. Also, the kind of romantic element of it, I quite liked. So yeah, so definitely this book, highly recommend. The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed. Okay guys, so that's the end of this video. That is the books that I read in January. That is my January wrap up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books, if you liked them, if you didn't like them, what you thought of what I thought of these books. Lol, what you thought of what I thought of these books. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram and @PrettyXBookish, DM, comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and engage with me on Instagram if you want to chat about any of these books further. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys have a really good day. Bye.